Hello and welcome to the spoiler review of Captain America Brave New World. I'm Josh, and following me will be Steve and Bill, so please stay tuned for them as well. The biggest spoilers I have for this film is the leader himself. Now, he's Ross's dealer slash prisoner. He's been a prisoner of Ross's since the Harlem incident in The Incredible Hulk. Got a little glimpse of his look in that film. They didn't follow through. He got exposed to more gamma rays, so he's definitely grotesque looking now, like a Frankenstein's monster. I do like his eyes, but yeah, the whole head thing is kind of, I don't know, it doesn't work too well for me. And for the look of the leader overall, if you compare it to the comics, now I know there was some concept art out for the leader, and obviously that changed. I think they shot him as such, and maybe with just a CGI flip of the switch, they were able to like alter the look. Or maybe Tim Blake Nelson never had makeup on, it was just dots. I'm not quite sure, but definitely changed up his look. I think the concept art look was a lot better. He had the big head, he had hair, and he had a goatee, and he was wearing like a trench coat, I think. Really dug that look. I think that was a lot better. And, him in the prison was just weird. Like, it felt like he could come and go as he pleased. And I'm not quite sure. That probably was thrown on the editing floor, I imagine. But it just was weird how he could leave and return, but he's a prisoner. Of course, there's mind control involved. That might be why. The mind control thing is slightly clever. I've seen it done so many times, though, with the music and all that. I just don't feel he's a mastermind overall with this plan. I don't, other than he just wanted chaos. I guess that's a successful plan. But yeah, overall, I'm like, what was the plan? Give Ross these pills, he'll feel better, and then he'll summon Sam to the White House eventually and have Sam, or want Sam to put the Avengers back together. And then there'll be an assassination attempt, and then it will further fuel the Red Hulk inside of Ross, and then, the treaty falls apart, and just everything's in shambles. I guess that was the plan. I don't know. Obviously, I'm sure he didn't plan it exactly to the T about what Ross wanted to do. Partnered up with Sam, with the Avengers and all. Bucky's cameo, that was a shocker. I didn't really see that coming. That was pretty cool. That was an add-on. I think you could tell. He's running for Congress now. It's interesting. Kind of hints to his position in Thunderbolts. But those are my biggest complaints about the film. I felt like it set up a lot of potential, but the payoff just wasn't that great. And I think it had enough distraction going for it for you to just tune in and just accept it as a B movie. And I know they're all B movies, really. Maybe B movies too kind. Regarding Sam, what I dislike so much is he should have a freaking helmet on. Again, they brought back the nanotechnology, which just takes me out of it totally, of believing in it. The helmet's cool. He doesn't wear it long. He takes a lot of chances getting brain damage, which would just destroy him entirely. I do feel like he should have the super soldier serum. And there's some lines where he says, I should have taken it. Like, yeah, agreed. Take the damn thing. The fight scenes were all right. The whole him fighting the Red Hulk was over so quickly. And I don't know what the future brings. It was nice to see Liv Tyler back on the raft, which we haven't seen since Civil War. So that was kind of a nice return, if nice is the right word. Probably not. They also say Liv Tyler's part was kind of CG'd. I think she was there, but I don't think they all were there. It's very shoehorned in. I feel like when they announced the casting, like maybe she originally had other things to do in the film, and due to scheduling conflicts, they had to, I don't know, reshoot her. It's just a mess. I think the behind the scenes is a lot more interesting than what we got.
So the spoiler version isn't too much different than what I was talking about with the spoiler-free version, but we will go into a little bit of some of the characters. So we see a new protege whose character's name is Joaquin Torres, He's played by Danny Ramirez, and he is kind of training, so to speak, to be the new Falcon. Anthony Mackie's Captain America character takes him to Isaiah Bradley, played by Carl Lumbly. He was the original person who had he was in the Korean War, had this super soldier serum, was featured heavily in the Disney TV series with Cap and Bucky. So Joaquin kind of gets sent to him for some training. We see Samuel Stearns is back from played by Tim Blake Nelson. He's the primary villain in the film, and he's been imprisoned forever by Thaddeus Ross, played by Harrison Ford. It's new casting. Mr. Ross was, I cannot remember the actor who played him prior to Harrison Ford, but from The Incredible Hulk and a couple other appearances in the MCU. He was, promised to get out and all this stuff if he helped, Ross, get to the highest office in the country of president, which he did, but he did not let Stearns out. So Stearns is exacting his revenge. He's been giving Ross pills that were supposedly for his heart because he had a heart condition, but they were laced with the gamma radiation, which was being exponentially increased over time, which is, how we see Harrison Ford become the Red Hulk later in the show. But, some really cool action sequences in this whole film. We see towards the opening where Anthony Mackie and Joaquin Torres have to kind of go and they're stopping a shipment of adamantium that got stolen, and they confront Giancarlo Esposito and all of his dudes in a really cool fight scene at the very beginning. It was just that was just a lot of fun, and watching Anthony Mackie play Sam Wilson, I love it because I really think that this is one of the characters who was built up from the ground up, in all the films that we've seen him in the past. I believe it was Winter Soldier where you saw his debut, if I'm not mistaken. And he was just a counselor for veterans, and just happened to be out jogging and, ran into Captain America and all this stuff. They become friends and partners and it all just comes down from there. But just a really cool character arc, in my opinion, for Anthony Mackie's character of Sam Wilson. A lot of really excellent action and fight scenes in this movie. I really enjoyed the final conversion where we see in the last act where Harrison Ford becomes the Red Hulk and Anthony Mackie's attempt to deal with the Red Hulk. It was just some outstanding fight sequences there. It shows that Anthony Mackie doesn't need the serum. He's kind of told that too by an awesome cameo from Bucky in the film. So it turns out that Barnes is running for Congress, which is interesting to me, that a guy like Ross, who's a complete dickwad, could actually become president. I'm starting to realize maybe some parallels. Anyway, but then you have, like Bucky, was brainwashed and killed people and, all this stuff, and he becomes a congressman. It's a very forgiving public, I'll say that for the Marvel Universe. But yeah, this is I highly recommend the film. I mean, is it as good as Winter Soldier? I don't think so. I mean, because I personally feel like Winter Soldier was the best of all of the Marvel films, and that includes, all the Avengers films that everybody freaks out for. So, but I like this one. It was a little bit more grounded. Some awesome visuals, some great fight scenes. At first you kind of want to punch Joaquin Torres, the new Falcon, but you really end up liking this guy a lot too. He was pretty fun. So yeah, I would highly recommend this film. I'm hoping to continue to see more of Anthony Mackie as Captain America. He was asked in the film by President Ross to reform the Avengers. So, that's going to be an interesting journey, so to speak. I'm guessing this is probably a good setup to the Thunderbolts film, which is out tomorrow. No, I don't know when it's out. It's coming soon though. So anyway, great film. Go see it. It's a lot of fun. Have some popcorn and enjoy yourself. Till then, or till next time, I'm Steve, and it was nice talking to you.
All right, everybody. Bill here with Field of Geeks, also known as Billy Creston on YouTube. And Captain America Brave New World. I'm going to get into the spoiler review, so be warned if you haven't seen the movie and don't want it spoiled for you, or if you just, don't care, whatever, stick around. I'm not in control of your life. You're a big boy. You can do what you want. So I'm going to do the opposite of what I normally do. I'm going to start with the bad stuff first. Get that out of the way. We're trying to be positive here. So the first thing I didn't like about this movie, the damn tech wipe is back. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I've brought this up on Field of Geeks before. And it's something that Marvel relies way too heavily on. You know that thing where they go to remove their helmet and it just kind of goes bloop and just disappears? Yeah, I hate that shit. Stop it. It kind of makes sense because Sam's suit in this, if you haven't seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier, spoiler alert, he gets a brand new suit from the Wakandans. Now, the suit itself is freaking awesome. Love all the technology in it, but that helmet, it's like a repaint of a Ant-Man helmet, and then they brought that whole tech wipe thing into it, and I don't like that. Just stop. Kevin Feige, I have your number. No, I'm just kidding. I don't. But you know what I mean. Just stop that shit. Number 2, Harrison Ford just doesn't do it for me as Thaddeus Ross. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big Harrison Ford fan. I've been a fan of his since, Indiana Jones, Star Wars, all that, the original trilogy, not the new shit. I didn't like the excuse that he was like, oh, it was lose the mustache or lose the election. Okay, cool. So why did you show us a flashback with the damn mustache then? Why not just give us the damn mustache? That's like his one defining feature. I would love to see William Hurt get this role. Of course, he passed away in 2022. God rest his soul. He really made Thaddeus Ross who he was for me. I also, I know nobody likes the Ang Lee Hulk, but I think that Sam Elliott did phenomenal as Thaddeus Ross in that movie, and maybe you could have brought him back. I mean, the guy never ages, and he's got an epic voice, and he could narrate me through a root canal, and I'd be happy. Other than that, like people say, oh, you don't like Harrison Ford, then who would you have cast? My pick would have been Stephen Lang, from the movie Don't Breathe. That guy, he would have been a good Thaddeus, in my opinion, and he probably wouldn't have bitched about growing a mustache. Okay, on to number 3 in the bad category, we have Sam's existential crisis. So there's a scene in this movie where Joaquin Torres gets injured, and he's sitting outside Sam's sitting outside his hospital room, and he's all, woe is me and shit, and has this conversation with Bucky, and he's all like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this, yada, yada, yada. Didn't we resolve all this in Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Do we really need to go back to that? I mean, up until this point in the movie, he was confident, even when he was getting his ass kicked. And he has no superpowers, he has no serum, anything like that. But, I thought we kind of resolved that already. So I don't know why we needed to bring it back, unless it was just to see Bucky come back, which I think that was just kind of an excuse to have Bucky do a cameo. But hey, also side note on that, Bucky's a congressman now. What the hell? Anyway, maybe we'll get explanation of that in the Thunderbolts. Who knows? Number 4. There's a bit too much going on in this movie. There's 3 sort of antagonists in this movie. There's, of course, Samuel Stearns, who's the main kind of baddie, and then he just kind of turns himself in and is like, well, see ya. There's, Sidewinder, Giancarlo Esposito's character, who's in it for He has like 3 scenes in the movie. And then, of course, there's Red Hulk, who's in it for about 5 minutes. It seemed like a lot, and I wish they would have. Maybe that was the original plan, was to flesh that out a little bit more, and it just got left on the cutting room floor or something like that. I mean, this movie is just under 2 hours. So that's a lot to fit in, not only those 3 characters being people for Sam to beat up, but just the plot and everything going on. It all felt kind of rushed. This movie had so many production issues and rewrites and reshoots and all kinds of stuff. And they cut Seth Rollins out of it, which bums me out. But, we'll see. I don't know. I don't think we're ever going to get a Snyder cut version of this film, but we'll see. The last thing that I was not real happy about was that we got another MacGuffin from space. So, of course, not really a big thing, but I wish they hadn't have spoiled it in the trailers, because I accidentally saw the trailer when it popped up on a YouTube ad, and I was like, fucking kidding me? Adamantium makes a appearance in this movie, and there was a whole debate in the movie about adamantium versus vibranium. Like, oh, we've got this great new metal that we can refine from this celestial that was in the Indian Ocean, which they finally address after Eternals. And, it's kind of like, well, now we've got control of it, instead of, just a bunch of shut-ins in Wakanda having control of vibranium, which I guess kind of makes sense. They did the thing that bothers me is that they did the same thing in X-Men Origins Wolverine, where it was just kind of like a rock from space, which I don't know. I don't know enough about the history of adamantium in the comics to know if that's really where it came from. I doubt it came from a celestial being transmuted into adamantium in the middle of an ocean, but whatever. One thing I did kind of like, though, fun little Easter egg, Thaddeus, he's given his little high-tech PowerPoint speech to all these people, and he brings up that it can be used for technology, medicine, and defense, I think is how he phrased it. Now, if you watch this movie a second time, when he mentions medicine and you see that skeleton pop up, yeah, foreshadowing, right? I just really hope they kind of refine. I can see this being like kind of a backdoor way of them getting the X-Men into the MCU, especially Wolverine. But I really hope they kind of take some time to do a little more refining of that. I'm tired of just like, oh, we had the Tesseract. It's a mysterious cube from space and it can do all this cool stuff. Then we had vibranium, and now we have adamantium. It's like, don't get me wrong. I love to see what the other countries in the MCU will do with it. As soon as Japan was mentioned as like being one of the countries that would help refine it, I was like, Silver Samurai, anybody? Hey, here we go. Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully Canada doesn't get a hold of it, if you know what I mean. All right, let's move on to the good stuff, right? Enough of this negativity crap. The first thing is, Sam is Captain America. I don't care what anybody says about Chris Evans, Steve Rogers not being in this movie. That's fine with me, because Anthony Mackie blew it out of the park. Not only that, I had way more fun watching his scenes than I did any Captain America scene throughout the history of the MCU. Maybe when he got Mjolnir, that could be a contender, but he does so much cool fighting in this movie. The suit tech is really cool, except for the helmet. The helmet sucks. The fight scenes are just spectacular, and going back to Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he does this all without the serum. He trained how to do this in his own backyard, which makes it even cooler. I mean, there's that whole dogfight scene over the Indian Ocean. That was just superb filmmaking right there. I loved it. That's the kind of stuff I want to see when I go to see a comic book movie, is over the top shit like that. And it was kind of like, I mentioned Clear and Present Danger. It's kind of like adding a little Top Gun in there, maybe a little Iron Eagle. That's a deep cut for you. Sorry. Number 2, Stearns is back, and it's about damn time. So Tim Blake Nelson reprises his role from The Incredible Hulk, which was 17 years ago at this point. He makes an awesome villain. He's a tremendous actor. I liked him in The Incredible Hulk even when he wasn't, an know-it-all douchebag. But, he was really good in that movie. He was one of the highlights of that movie for me, so I'm glad they finally brought him back. Finally kind of explained what's been going on with him. I would have loved to see him fleshed out more. I would have loved for him to not just pull a Loki and turn himself in. And, he's probably turned himself in because that's exactly where he wants to be. And surely that'll come up later. I would love to see him interact with Bruce Banner at some point. I think that was kind of a missed opportunity. I would kind of like to see, the Hulk standalone films haven't been superb by any means. I don't know that Mark Ruffalo could necessarily carry a Hulk movie all on his own, but, I've been surprised before. I've been wrong before. Number 3, this movie stands completely on its own. I had mentioned in the spoiler-free review about how this was kind of like the first MCU movie I'd seen in a while. Had great action sequences, doesn't rely too heavily on the previous entries. There are things, everything's connected in the MCU. You should be used to that by now. But it's not overly heavy-handed. A lot of movies that I really wished would have stood on their own feet, like Spider-Man Homecoming, relied too much, in my opinion, on like Iron Man, for example. And it was good to see. It's good to see a version of Captain America that's kind of doing it on his own. It could be, as I said in the spoiler-free review as well, if you've never watched an MCU movie in your life and this is your first one, it can very well stand on its own. There is some stuff that you kind of need to know going into it, but you don't really need to know, if that makes any sense. They tell you, like, you hear it all the time that, like, to really enjoy this, you need to have watched 4 seasons of something on Disney Plus and these 5 movies. And it's kind of the case here, but, at the same time, you can enjoy it on its own. And I don't think you'll be completely lost. It's a good movie. I think it's pretty cool. Number 4, Red Hulk isn't just a reskin of Bruce Banner, which I love. What do I mean by reskin? You ever played Mortal Kombat? All the ninjas in it? When they first started Mortal Kombat, there was like 5 ninja characters and they were all the same except they just had a palette swap done. It's not like that with Red Hulk. He's got different abilities, different strengths, different weaknesses. You see Sam using like these little razor feathers on him, which I think are super cool. It reminded me of Archangel a little bit, and I wish, we would have gotten more of that in X-Men Apocalypse. But, they're like piercing his skin. Like bullets are bouncing off of him, but his tech is like cutting into him and stuff like that. So that just shows you how strong vibranium is, I guess, in this universe. But, Red Hulk's whole thing is he gives off tremendous amounts of heat, and you can see that when he's like sort of calming down. He catches the cherry blossom petal in his hand, and it doesn't immediately burn up like the other ones were when they were touching his skin. Just little things like that I liked. That and the CGI look pretty decent. We've had time to refine it. It doesn't look as hokey as the Smart Hulk from Endgame. I think it looks pretty good. And that's the one point where I'm kind of glad they used Harrison Ford, because his face model and everything does make the Red Hulk look pretty cool. Too bad he's only in it for about 5 minutes, but still, they're not just relying on Hulk smash. It's a totally different character, and it feels different, which is good. My last point on here is there is a phenomenal cast behind this movie. Anthony Mackie definitely has what it takes, in my opinion, to be an MCU leading man. He killed it in this movie. He was good, and I've liked him in every movie he's been in up to this point. You know, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Those were good movies for him. Even in, you know, Civil War, things like that, he was really good. I love Anthony Mackie as an actor and as a character, and you know, as the Sam Wilson character in this movie was really good. Danny Ramirez plays Joaquin Torres, made a really cool sidekick. It was kind of cool to see him get his own Falcon flight suit that's like, you know, kind of touches into that whole military thing. It's kind of like a camouflage pattern. That was really cool. Shira Haas, who plays Ruth Bat Seraph, a.k.a. Sabra, she was like, you know, she was kind of like the little 5-foot bodyguard of the president. She was good in it. Jonah and I had just talked about Sabra on a recording for Number One Comics, so it was kind of cool to see her in the movie. There was a little bit of controversy behind her characterization in it, as Shama Rangwala, a professor of York University, said, "It was changed to appeal to everyone, but will likely please no one." And I totally get that. I think that, you know, regardless of what's going on out in the world, we go to movies to escape. And if you can't, you know, be aware of the things that are going on in the world, and, you know, I mean, how many 90s movies did we get that were like, you know, in the 80s and 90s that were, oh, you know, the enemy is German, so they're tied to the Nazis. The enemy is Japanese because of Pearl Harbor, et cetera, you know, like, who really cares? I think they should have just left her origin alone, and I would have been happy with that. Tim Blake Nelson, as I mentioned, really good to see him back. Carl Lumbly as Isaiah Bradley, one of my favorite characters from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm glad he was back in it, even though he was in it very briefly. Giancarlo Esposito as Sidewinder. Again, anything that Giancarlo Esposito does, I'm a fan of. He's a tremendous actor. One honorable mention I'd like to give to is William Mark McCullough, who plays Commander Dennis Dumphy in the movie. He's one of my favorite characters, and he's like a little side character that's in it like twice, I think. But he was Demolition Man from the comics. And if you want to know what Demolition Man looks like, the best way I can describe it is it looks like a cross between Wolverine and the yellow and red Daredevil suit. It looks like somebody just mashed those two together. He was my favorite side character in the movie, though. It was too bad that he got the axe. But then we got Liv Tyler to come back as Betty Ross, which was kind of a cool little surprise. They kind of teased her throughout the movie, you know, showed pictures of her, everything like that. It was kind of cool to see that. She's not in it very long, but she comes back at the end. So, you know, that's cool to know that she's still out there somewhere. I don't think I've seen Liv Tyler in years, not since Lord of the Rings. Anyway, as I said in the spoiler-free review, I give this a solid 4 out of 5 stars. It's a good movie. By no means is it the best in the MCU, and by no means is it the worst. I highly recommend you go see it, and I'm looking forward to see where they go from here. So let me know what you think. Did you like it? Did you hate it? And please keep the politics out of it, because no one gives a shit. Thank you. Bye-bye.